The head of Barclays resigns as the shakeup over a rate-fixing scandal continues. Chief Executive Robert Diamond stepped down earlier today, only one day after the bank's chairman resigned. This comes a week after Barclays agreed to a $450 million settlement over accusations that it fixed key interest rates. Mr. Diamond was once a staunch defender of the banking industry.
There was a period of remorse and apology for banks. I think that period needs to be over.
The resignation was welcomed by the British government, which has started an inquiry into the scandal.
I think Bob Diamond's made the right decision for Barclays, also the right decision for the country, because we need our banks focused on lending to the economy, not on the scandals of the past. And I hope this can be the first step towards a new culture of responsibility in British banking, which is what the British public very much want to see.
I'm David Gillen, reporting for Business Day Live. Later in the show, we'll be hearing about a high school startup club that nurtures budding entrepreneurs. And Brian Stelter is here to discuss a shakeup in weather forecasting. But first, the drug giant GlaxoSmithKline has agreed to pay $3 billion in fines over accusations of fraud. Joining me now to talk about the case is reporter Katie Thomas. Morning, Katie.
Hi, good morning.
This is a huge settlement. It's actually the largest involving a drug company. But to be clear, Glaxo did some pretty egregious things. Just walk us through some of the allegations here, which they've actually agreed to.
Right. Yeah. Prosecutors say there's a couple of things. There's three major drugs that they're talking about. Two are antidepressants, Paxil and Wellbutrin. Right. With Paxil, what they're accused of doing is basically marketing the drug for use in children, even though it wasn't approved for children who are
in fact,
18.
there were some trials that suggested an increased suicide risk among teens. I mean, and they were giving free samples to child psychiatrists and things like that. I mean, I find a lot of people will find this shocking, but the question that's on a lot of people's minds is they're paying this large sum, okay, but not a single individual has been singled out for punishment of any kind. And so my question is, okay, the company's paying it, which is really the shareholders. Is this really going to deter this kind of behavior? I mean, what's the thinking?
Right. I mean, it is a lot of money. $3 billion is a lot of money. But some critics say that this is kind of the cost of doing business for these companies. You know, for example, GlaxoSmithKline, they actually announced this settlement back in November. They already set aside money for it. You can tell, the stock market barely reacted to it yesterday. It was actually up, yesterday slightly. So some people say that things aren't really going to change until individuals are held accountable.
Okay, now this is certainly not the first time we've seen a settlement over so-called off-label use.
No.
There have been others. I mean, what are U.S. authorities saying about this, and are we going to see more of these kinds of cases going forward?
There have been a lot of these cases. In fact, this year is actually a record year for recoveries under this whistleblower law. I think that we will see more of this. Now, the pharmaceutical industry says this is, these are marketing practices that were in the past. They've changed their code of conduct.
I was reading that statement from Glaxo yesterday, and they were like, oh yeah, basically ancient history. We've pulled up our socks and so forth. Now they've signed some agreement that basically, I love these agreements in which they agree not to do bad things going forward.
Right.
But this has a little something extra to it. They've actually said we will claw back bonuses and things from execs. So I mean, that is good news, right? Positive news.
Yeah, I mean, even pretty serious critics said that was a step forward, and they hadn't seen that before. And basically, what it is if these executives are found to be engaging in similar types of behavior or supervising people who did, then they can lose some of their bonuses.
Right. Katie, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Turning now to technology, Silicon Valley is synonymous with entrepreneurship, and that's filtering down through the community. Quentin Hardy reports on a high school in Palo Alto that has an unusual club.
I went to Palo Alto High School, and instead of a Future Business Leaders of America club, they had Future Entrepreneurs Club. Maybe a VC mom comes in and talks about what it's like to be a VC, or maybe somebody's dad who's an engineer talks about how to pitch to a bunch of engineers, or they critique each other's ideas. It's about sort of the heart of what they consider entrepreneurism, following your dreams. So I had all these 15 to 17-year-old kids talking about benchmarking and focus grouping, but really about, figuring out how can I change the world. Palo Alto is a somewhat special place. You just don't go into any Whole Foods and see Mark Zuckerberg buying a head of lettuce. And you certainly don't go into a high school and see that many Mercedes and Lexuses in the parking lots. But by the same token, it's cheaper than ever to start a business. You have web tools, you have ways of reaching customers. So it's conceivable that this kind of thing could spring up all around the country. What's changed so much for these kids and for all of us is the advent of smartphones. They're all working on one or another kind of iPhone application or social network with a mobile component. What they have down that I thought was just so great was a kind of pragmatic sense of how they're going to disrupt the world. As one of these kids said, you know, if you fail at business, you might end up living at home with your parents. Well, I'm already doing that. Beyond that, they said, you know, when I apply with my job at 17, I may not get it, but they're going to remember me. And when I come back in 5 years or 10 years, they're still going to remember me because I was that kid who was pushing his dream. That's very crafty and very pragmatic and the sign of an entrepreneur who's in for the long haul. And one more thing. There were about 4 or 5 kids in the school who weren't in the Entrepreneurs Club because they're too busy running their own businesses.
And finally, everyone talks about the weather, but as they say, no one does anything about it. Unless you're the Weather Channel, that is. Yesterday, the company announced it was buying one of its chief online rivals, Weather Underground. Here to talk us through the deal and what it means for the world of forecasting is Brian Stelter from the Media Desk. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
So, hey, the sky's apparently the limit when it comes to the weather biz. I was looking it up when Weather Channel was sold a few years back. It was something like $3.5 billion for Weather Channel. And you got any idea what Weather Underground's going for? I know that it wasn't disclosed.
It wasn't disclosed, so it wasn't material to the company.
Okay.
It was really I think I would describe it more of as a cultural play, you know, because they were bringing in a company that was fiercely independent, that its fans don't like the Weather Channel. Weather Channel's coming in and taking it over because it wants to have an even bigger pie of the weather market online. They already have most of it, now they have even more.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, what's the rationale here? I mean, just to get bigger or die.
It gives them about, Weather Underground has about 10 million users a month, and half of them never go to weather.com, the Weather Channel's site. So they're getting those users rather. They get those ad dollars as a result. So it gives them greater scale in the marketplace. It also gives them more data because it's a great time to be in the weather news business. There's a lot of crazy weather going on, and Weather Underground has all these weather stations across the country the Weather Channel can tap into and get data from.
I feel like, I mean, I don't know, do you watch Weather Channel? Are you a big
I do.
fan?
You know, I grew up wanting to be a meteorologist when I was 5 years old.
Did not
and
know
with
that.
one of those green screens. It quickly gave up on that dream.
Okay, so, but I mean, I tune in, probably like a lot of people. I'm a bit of a grazer.
Yeah,
you know? I mean,
most people are.
Tune out.
It's sort of utility. You just want to know it's there.
Exactly, but it's become a permanent fixture, no? I mean, it really has become a permanent fixture in the
It has.
landscape for us.
You see them on the Today Show in the morning. You see them all day online and on phones. They actually have a huge business on mobile devices because, of course, that's where you really want to get weather information on the go. You want to get it when you're traveling. So they have a great inroads in that area, and they're taking the channel, the one we know on television, and sort of turning into more of an entertainment channel. It's got a lot of reality shows these days, a lot of documentaries, because their real future is online, on weather.com and on mobile devices, and now on the Weather Underground site also.
So in the weather forecasting game, then, I mean, what's left out there? And are they going to get picked off too?
Well, WeatherBug is the #2 under the Weather Channel. They only have about half the audience online as the Weather Channel, but they are also pretty fiercely independent. They're more about data, and they have a lot of centers across the country to get weather data. Wouldn't be surprised if the Weather Channel is looking around for other acquisitions, because a new CEO came in about 6 months ago, and this purchase was one of his first ideas, was we need to go and get the Weather Underground. He'd like to keep expanding the company and growing, especially overseas, because after all, there's a whole wide world to be forecast.
Brian, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
That's all for today, but stay with us online at nytimes.com for our continuing coverage of these and other stories. I'm David Gillen reporting for Business Day Live. Thanks for watching.